future editions of CoMotion Global. We'll report back to you in the near future. But next up, obviously, one of the reasons, as John mentioned at the outset of the conference yesterday, that CoMotion Global is here in Riyadh is because here is where we can convene many of the Chinese companies that are really setting the agenda when it comes to global transportation. Whether it is China's massive energy, sustainable, renewable energy build-out, wind and solar across its western regions, whether it's incredible investments in battery technology it's making, its EV industry, which we can see here in the exhibition hall, and the incredible ranges of its transportation, the features and interiors and the glowing reviews that continue to come out as Global North auto critics are astounded by the build quality of these vehicles. Yes, there is much to be learned from China and its ecosystem. But also there's a lot of mystery that surrounds it as well. What was the policy architecture that really helped create this colossus of global mobility industry? And so our next panel is going to address some of that. It's going to explain some of the levers that were pulled, dispel some of the myths that get told around China, and really help us understand exactly what's going on inside of that combination of industrial policy and private entrepreneurial vigor and energy that has led China to this step. And so we're going to have a fantastic panel to do this. It's going to be led by Bill Russo, who's the founder and CEO of Automobility. So I'm very excited for this. Bill, please bring them on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I am Bill Russo. I'm the founder and CEO of Automobility. It's great to be here in Riyadh. My firm, we're a strategy and investment advisory firm based in Shanghai. I've lived in China for 21 years. I came to China in 2004, then with Chrysler, a U.S. automaker. I ran their Northeast Asia business, working with several partners in the country. And after spending the first part of my career in the United States, working for IBM and then Chrysler, 17 years in Detroit, I came to China at a time where it was about a 3 million unit a year market. In that time, it's risen to now producing more than 1/3 of all the cars in the world, about 2/3 of all the electric vehicles, and about 75% of the EV batteries. The commercialization of technology at scale, China is truly the accelerator for the commercialization of the 21st century definition of the car. My company, Automobility, advises global companies, startups, and mobility tech investors on how the intersection between the East and West, between China and the global automotive industry, how these models intersect. And that's what we're here to talk about today. China's built one of the fastest moving mobility flywheels in the world, combining scale, tightly integrated supply chains, and rapid software iteration. That's the part that I think the world doesn't really have a close proximity to, and I want to discuss that as part of our discussion today with our three panelists. Our goal today is to understand how the China model works, where it creates advantages, where the friction points emerge, and where meaningful convergence with global systems, where it's already taking place. Let me briefly introduce the three panelists and their backgrounds. We have Dr. Feilong, CEO of Hyperview, a full-stack intelligent driving business, bridging, again, having worked in General Motors, having worked in the supply chain as well, understanding and how to bridge U.S. and China in innovation categories. That's what Dr. Liu brings. Tian, JinJun, the CEO of Geely Middle East, is on the front line of global localization. I think we can use the term glocalization. Global in view, but localized in markets. And he is bringing that from Geely to the Middle East region. And Lola Woetzel, who I've known for many years, managing partner at Global Six Limited, bringing decades of experience, 40 years in China. Wow, you're double where I am. Amazing. And bringing experience from her prior role in having set up McKinsey in China, their business, and been the director of the McKinsey Global Institute, has a really true macro view on China's economic and industrial transformation. I'm going to have 3 topics that I'd like to cover. I want to start with, how did this happen? What enabled China's mobility leap? Let's start with that. And to kind of frame that, as I described, China really, the rise of what we've seen in China is relatively recent, right? It's 3 million units now to more than 31.4 million last year. It will top that this year. More than 1/3 of all the cars made in the world. But what enabled that to happen? Scale, investments, technologies, consumer adoption, right? A whole lifestyle shift toward embracing mobility at the core. I'm going to start with Lola. Based on your work and your observations over many years in China, what macro forces allowed China to scale mobility technology innovations like electric and intelligent mobility so quickly?
Well, thanks, Bill. And so I guess I have 21 minutes, so.
You don't have all of that.
So, well, I mean, in a sense, so I graduated from the University of Southern California a long time ago. And when I graduated, I sat there and I listened to the names of everybody graduating in the electrical engineering department and all these other departments. And you could count on the fingers of 2 hands the number of non-Chinese names. Mm-hmm. So we knew that the next generation, decades ago, of electrical engineers, of computer scientists, were going to be Chinese. The only question was, where would they work? Would they work in the US or would they work in China? So and obviously, I think they started working in the US, and I think Dr. Liu can speak to this, but now they're really working in China. So I think the first and most important policy was the supportive environment for the development of human capital. So in the words of Jack Ma, we may not have the money, we may not have the IP, but we have brains, and Chinese brains are as good as any other brains. And so we just have to use those brains, and from that came Alibaba. So that's one. The other one, briefly, is infrastructure. As I think China got the balance right between where you should put the public money and where you should put the private money. And so the public money goes into the infrastructure. The private money goes into the things that go on the infrastructure. And so we built the infrastructure in advance. And then, yes, the point of building the infrastructure was to unlock the demand, and the demand came from the private sector. So I think they got the right mix between public and private policy to scale what is now, of course, world-leading industry.
Great, great. Feilong, I'm going to come to you. Having, again, lived in the US, having now being from China and now doing business with your company, intelligent driving obviously being your area of focus. We heard you earlier talk about your hydrogen business as well. So you have a multi-sector view. But having lived in both worlds and worked across the borders, what makes China uniquely suited for leading this development of, in your case now, full-stack intelligent driving?
Thank you, Horst. And I want to add a little bit point to the Laura said about the infrastructure view. I work in US for more than 10 years and I work for General Motors and developing the autonomous vehicle too. And what I feel different between the US and China's strategy is outside China, most company emphasize on the smart vehicle. But inside China, and there's another pillar, say a connected vehicle. So there's why there's a word called ICV, intelligent connected vehicle, right? And China is, as Laura said, is that China love to invest in infrastructure thing. For example, the 5G network, whatever. Right now, as far as I know, China has some funding support to developing more toward to like a V2X, the V2V communication, cloud computing, and I think the value to that is, without infrastructure support, you have to make a car super smart to be able to drive autonomously, right? Because the car make a decision by himself, right? You have to have a lot of sensor, high computing capacity, and just like a smart driver, right? But with the cloud support, with the infrastructure support, we can somehow downplay a little bit on the car level, right? So that like you have a very good highway and every car can drive, right? Something like that, So and actually sometimes because the car sensor has a restriction by line of sight. We have to see it on the same line, on the line, so before it can detect anything, right? But V2X can broadcast the vehicle from any angles, and say around corner and where you have a blind spot, but the V2X can tell you there's a car coming, right?
Yeah.
And that can increase safety level, So for some sense, we agree that the connected vehicle can add some additional layer of the redundancy or safety to the autonomous driving capability. I think that's where China is putting some efforts there, But of course, that's require a lot of money, and I understand to build a very good road infrastructure, say V2X, perhaps every 500 meters in the urban area, you need to put some sensor and roadside unit and mobile edge computing, LiDAR sensors. That's all about investment, right? And so I think that's still some distance to go, but as Laura said, China is allowed to invest in the infrastructure, and we will see there, I guess.
You brought up a very important thing that I want to make sure people take away. The term in the West is software-defined vehicle. That tends to view the computer as the car standalone. The intelligent connected vehicle is where the car is part of the distributed network of information, right? The car is connected to the infrastructure.
Yes.
And I think that's where, as you said, lowering the cost of the development in vehicle is because we put some attention to the compute power that informs the vehicle. It's a local area network of
exactly.
the transportation system.
As by the connected vehicle architecture, that the car and the car can share information, right?
Right.
You see and I see, right? We communicate through the cloud,
Right.
So that means we have more information to make my own decision because I know you are coming on different directions, and also potentially that can remove some very expensive sensor on the individual car because you have a cloud to help you, right? China has a cloud infrastructure like Alibaba or what Tencent did.
We'll turn to Tian, CEO of Geely Middle East region. A little bit of background on, for those who know, I think a lot of people do know Geely, but they're one of the only, and it's probably the only truly successful cross-border merger. Geely has built its business as a global company around in an inorganic approach through M&A. Obviously, the most classic example of that was the acquisition of Volvo in 2009. But even before that, London Taxi, Manganese Bronze, this is the company that owns that business. As one of the first Chinese companies to truly become a global player, you have some unique perspectives, I think, to bring to the question of how do Chinese companies and what are different about Chinese companies as they go global. I'm going to ask, how did the learnings that Geely has acquired over time, how do they translate into helping you compete in global markets, in the brands that you represent in the international markets?
Okay, so when Chinese OEM go to global market, how to transfer their capability in China to overseas markets. So in my point of view, the key words are, first is localization. The second, I think, is ecosystem. So the localization, when we go to a certain overseas market, the first step, normally we should do market research and also technical regulation study. So we must understand the consumer and also understand the standards, the homologation standards. And then we will get a conclusion and develop our products and modify our products accordingly. So the Chinese version cannot export to a market directly without any localization. We must do localization to comply with the regulation and also the market demands, the consumer's preference. So this is the second step. We must finish localization and pass the homologation in overseas market. And the third step, after we finish the overseas version, global version vehicle, before we deliver to the consumer, we must do some road tests and also car clinic in the local market. So after we confirm everything is right, everything is ready, and then we will launch to those markets to guarantee everything is good. So the product quality is 100% confirmed by us before we launch to market. So this is very, very normal strategy for our localization. Okay. And besides the localization, I think the product competitiveness is one aspect for our success in the market. And we also should consider about after-sales service, okay, in the local market. So we must, for example, for Geely, we established our spare parts center in this Middle East region, in Feilong of UAE. So we can deliver our spare parts to our customer very quickly, compared with to deliver from China to here. So quality of the products, high quality of the sales service, and also if we hope to be successful in the overseas market, another two very important element is we must control our quality and cost. So costs, the products price here must be reasonable. Okay, not cheap, but reasonable. Okay, and also the quality must reach the same level with China. So the key was ecosystem. I explained I mean, we must not only consider the technical innovation, but also we should consider high technology, quality, cost, and also after-sales service. If all those issues, you are ready to go to overseas market, and then you will be very, very successful in the overseas market. Okay.
Great. And you use the word ecosystem. I want to highlight that that's one of the features that I see very common among Chinese companies is building ecosystems at the local level is something that really requires partnerships. And I think that's something Chinese companies will look for as they come to the international markets. It's not, I've got to control everything the way I do it in China. Localization means you've got to make adaptations for the local market, as I think you've highlighted.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to
Exactly.
I want to turn to the second question, which is what defines the speed to market that we see Chinese companies operating? How do Chinese companies innovate and iterate so quickly? How do you go as quickly as possible into these markets if it's talking about exports? Exports, just so people understand, 5 years ago in 2020, China only exported less than 1 million cars a year. Last year it was 5.9 million. This year it's going to be somewhere close to 7 million. But it's also bringing new technology at scale, EVs and connected vehicles, now autonomous driving experimentation. I'll turn to Feilong. What enables this rapid iteration across chips, sensors, software integration? What makes it possible for China to move at such high speed?
I think there's a many factors driving the innovation in China. I mean, speaking of myself, example that why I go to China founding this company is because I think China has, in my eye, there's 3 pillars. Investment. I think China has an investment, on to supporting financially, and China has a market. China is a market, the car market relatively is young and open mind, and they accept the new technology, right? I mean, if you put some fancy stuff on the car, I mean, the people like it. They are not very conservative. So market is also one key. The third thing is about the people, right? I think that Lola indicated that there are many engineering background students in China, and so the human resource also, supportive. So for your question that why the innovation happen in China in a faster speed, I think that many market people could be some factors.
Right.
In my eye, that's how we work. We hire a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
And they know nothing about autonomous when they come to company, but they become expert after 2 years. We grow our own people because there are no mature people anyway.
Yeah.
Know the technology. So I think that's my 2 cents.
Right, great. Lola, Tian mentioned ecosystems. I wanted to ask you about that from your observations. How do ecosystems factor in? And by that, we can extend it beyond partnerships, but talent, suppliers, investments, data. How does ecosystems accelerate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is something people might not fully appreciate unless you are in China, is that China is a country, of course, but China is also a culture, it's a civilization, and the first question people will ask you when you get to China, asking you about just a background, is Anita Lau, yeah, where are you from? And you don't say China. You say, I'm from Hangzhou, I'm from Shanghai, I'm from wherever I am from.
Or the district of
and
the city.
so the ecosystem is very spatial. And so I used to do a lot of work with local governments. And basically what we would say, okay, so we've got 50 square kilometers of land. We have a GDP target. How are we going to fill this in? And so then you go out and you go find an anchor tenant. And that anchor tenant's usually an assembler of some sort, an OEM. And then you tell the anchor tenant, okay, I would like to have you come here. I'll give you a lot of incentives, but I want you to bring everything. Like, I want you to bring your whole supply chain. I would like you to bring the R&D. I'd like to pretty much everything. And then I'll make space for all of that. And then I would like you to train the human capital. I'd like to have all these people learn from you. And surprise, surprise, 10 years later, you get Zhongguancun, or you get Xi'an, or you get Shenzhen. And so that's how you do it. And it's not rocket science. And I think that this playbook has been run elsewhere in the world, but China's done it at scale. And it's done it with a mindset of saying, like, we are going to be supporting of this ecosystem. We are going to consciously not really be in it for one company. We are in it for all of it. And so we will give preferences to individuals who do the things that we like them to do. But, it's a competitive world. And if we have another competitor coming in, well, we'll be happy to have them too. So in Shanghai, we had GM, but we also had Volkswagen.
Right.
And so in every place, the orchestration is many times done by what we'll call quasi-public authorities.
Right.
And I think that builds it.
You don't wait till you've had it all vertically integrated. You look for partners and build ecosystems together, and that accelerates the development.
Correct.
Tian, how do ecosystem factors, if you go beyond the borders of China, you're having that now going global, and China doing it at speed. I mean, going from 1 million exports to 7 million in 5 years is another example of China's speed. How does speed translate into the overseas markets? What adaptations are needed in order to continue to work at that high speed as you move beyond the borders?
So I would like to clarify the ecosystem. There's one ecosystem for OEM, for manufacturing. And also in overseas market, we are supposed to establish ecosystem for consumer.
Right.
Okay. So our vehicle go to overseas markets, we are supposed to, establish the ecosystem for the consumer for the vehicle. The vehicle should connect to the local internet, and also to utilize the local navigation, and also download music, and also some other functions. So vehicle to facility. So this gonna be, in the future, is a trend very clearly. So when the consumer drive a new electric vehicle, the experience will be very, very exciting and totally different from the traditional ICE model. So this is what we are working on, that to establish an ecosystem for overseas consumers as well. Yeah, for manufacturing, we have ecosystem from R&D center, from supply chain, and from manufacturing, and also a lot of a whole industry supply chain. Okay, for overseas market, we have another ecosystem for the consumer.
Right, and I want to contrast that, because all of us who've been in the industry for a period of time have seen the playbook of Japan and Korea. But when Japan goes global, it brings Japan and its keiretsu. When Korea goes global, it brings its partnership ecosystem. What I've observed is when China goes global, it opens up new ecosystems, as you point out. The ecosystem of China doesn't necessarily translate perfectly to the world, so that opens up the door for partnerships. Ecosystems can be built at the local level with overseas partners. That's something I don't think the world really recognizes. China's going global, but it's doing it differently than what we've seen before. One last round, we'll make it a fast round. convergence, friction in the next decade. Looking forward, there's going to be pushback. There's going to be challenges. And I'm going to ask each of you, from your own point of view, what do you think the biggest challenges are for China going, as it becomes a global player in auto and mobility tech? What do you see the main friction points and challenges going forward? And we'll go from left to right. Start with you, Feilong.
It's a big question, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a. I think the you know, because our you know, as you know, we do two business units. One is autonomous driving, another about hydrogen truck. You know, for example, when we try to sell the hydrogen truck, I think the reason why we come to Saudi because we see the current you know, geopolitics situation right now, right? And China-U.S. has tension. You know, Middle East seem to be neutral, you know, and friendly to China. So I think the next 5 to 10 years, perhaps, you know, find your good partner globally, and you know, localize and leverage this, say, a good Middle East China connection, and then we at first step maybe the Europe and the U.S. later. I think maybe that's practical to go. I think.
Great, Tian.
So I'm responsible for sales and marketing. So for me, go to Middle East market. The biggest challenge for new energy vehicle, first is charging infrastructure. Not enough here. So this is the first.
So replicating the boundary conditions which
Yeah.
made it possible in
Yeah.
China, it's harder to do outside of
In
China.
China, charging facility is very, very easy.
Prevalent,
But here, very difficult to find.
Same, I would imagine, is true for the intelligent connected vehicle.
Oh, exactly. Even hydrogen will be worse, you know.
Yeah.
But you can still sell your gas car, right?
Yes, if you're a company like Geely or you know, many of them, the ability to flexibly be able to work with both the old and the new is an advantage.
Another challenge for auto industry in Saudi Arabia, in KSA, I think, is supply chain. This is also very, very crucial for the automotive mobility development. Okay. The third, I think, all of us, include the consumer and all the distributor here, we are looking forward to the government encourage policies to support the new energy vehicle industry.
You bring up an important point. China's always been policy-led. The rest of the world doesn't really have the equivalent of that. Policies are absent, and it often leaves things, you know, open for interpretation. And Lola, I've heard you talk about this. You know, lack of policy is one of the big challenges I think the Chinese companies will face as they go outside. They're used to being told what the rules are. It's hard to really interpret that market by market as you go global.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good note to sort of summarize a little bit. That, and as on previous panels mentioned, this notion of capacity. And I think that, you know, the reality is that there is unevenness in the capacity of regulators, of the state, of infrastructure throughout the world that is now desperately wanting the benefits of the outcomes of the technology that China has, but they don't, perhaps not everywhere has the capacity to absorb it. And in order to enter that market with that technology, one needs to have the infrastructure, one needs to have the human capital, one needs to have the decision-making authority, the governance. And if those things aren't there, well, you may not be able to get the best technology, but you'll get some technology. And so I think the majority of Chinese exports actually are ICE vehicles at this point.
That's right.
And so yes, you'll probably get that, but you will not be getting the autonomous EV unless you actually build the capacity in the receiving side. So I think that the short answer is that the biggest challenge for Chinese companies and in globalizing is to understand what they're dealing with. Are they dealing with an environment where they can, in fact, deploy their technology to its maximum, or should they take it more, let's just say, one step at a time?
Yeah. Well, I hope you take away from this that there are certain things that are very different, but we can learn from each other, right? There's opportunity for convergence. Collaboration is possible within the story around China's mobility playbook. It's not a closed ecosystem. It's an open ecosystem. It's about integrated ecosystem-based approach, enabling rapid learning cycles and a willingness to embrace new ways of thinking. That's what I've learned in my 21 years in China. Hopefully, if you do business in and with China, you'll learn a bit about how open how surprisingly open and partnership opportunities are working with some of the leading players, some of whom were represented here. So thank you very much. That's the end of our session. Thank you.